So, Johnny, when were you 18? Hang on, let me do the maths.
When I was 18.
Was it 1995?
Bloody hell. No, earlier than that.
94?
94, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that was a while ago. So your first bit of advice would have been to invest or believe in the internet.
Yeah. I'm trying to think whether or not the internet... Yeah, no, 18, yes, it would not have been a thing, would it?
I don't think so.
No, well, it existed. I remember, this is wildly divergent, but I remember only being aware of the internet being a thing. It was a concept, but you would get like packets of crisps, and on all of a sudden on things like that, or cereal bars or whatever, it would say at the bottom, www.quavers.com, and it meant nothing to me. I was like, what the hell is this? So when I first got the internet, I looked up Quavers.
And what did you find?
I didn't know just how to buy more Quavers.
Genius!
Right, because of the internet as well, there was no ordering mechanism either. So it was just like a thing that told you a bit about Quavers, what the ingredients were, and then where to write to get more Quavers. So
Good Lord.
It wasn't even very good. And then I got confused, didn't know what else to do, and had a Jack Russell dog, as I still do now, not the same one, and looked up things about Jack Russell dogs. And the whole thing took hours and hours because it was dial-up.
Okay, so now we've established how old you are.
That gives you a timeline example, doesn't it? Now we're talking about a long time ago.
Okay, so let's just to our or a message to our 18-year-old selves (brackets fitness edition).
Not Quavers, then.
We'll add some parameters. I will kick things off by saying that I religiously did not eat carbs after 6 p.m. because the mythical carb goblins obviously came out from their deep and very timely slumber at 6 p.m. on the dot, which meant that I therefore couldn't consume carbs after 6 p.m. because someone on the internet, or actually many articles of Men's Health, probably told me not to.
We've established I was 94. Where were you?
2012, 2013.
When you were 18, yeah. That makes me feel older. But I was just trying to think what the timelines were for that kind of information.
So we were on the iPhone 5.
Christ.
Or something like that. I don't even know what iPhone was. That was my frame of reference. I just backed myself to know what iPhone. I started talking. I was like, you don't actually know, Fergus.
Just trying to establish, because you immediately, the difference will be quite stark here in that kind of thing, because you're looking at information that probably you received from the internet.
Correct.
It wasn't somebody in the gym told you that. It was likely information.
I was told lots of terrible information in gyms as well.
Because everything I learned that was wrong about fitness was given to me by an individual.
And then he
probably remember who they were.
Got Reddit. Yeah. And then he made a YouTube channel or commented on YouTube channels. And then he became a contributor to generation9.com. And then he somehow got a job as an editor at Men's Health.
Oh, God.
It seems. So we actually could be talking about the same person in terms of the lessons we've learned. You never know. The world is small. So anyway, I early in my fitness journey when I was trying to lose weight, believed that the carb goblins would make me fat if I ate them. If I consumed the carbs that obviously the goblins wanted. I don't know why I'm pulling on this methodology. Basically, I didn't eat carbs after 6 p.m.
Something to do with
because of something to do with the fact that they would metabolize into fat, whereas they wouldn't before 6 p.m. Which is interesting, given time zones and
there was just so much
daylight hours,
so much any nutritional information at all.
Obvious stuff to it. But then you're like, but some guy said so, and he was jacked. So yeah, for a while I didn't eat carbohydrates after 6 p.m. But ironically, again, this is where Lane Norton spends a lot of time talking about things. By having that as a principle by which I held myself accountable to, I did continue. There were other principles as well, of which I will share very shortly in this message to my 18-year-old self. I got a lot leaner. I went from 102 kilos to 76 kilos, really, really jacked. And at 102, I was a fairly chunky rugby player, so I got all the way down quite aggressively. And one of the principles that helped me do that was by not consuming carbs after 6. And it was such a hard and fast rule for me, there wasn't even any wiggle room, no negotiation whatsoever. So whilst it was completely logically false,
it worked for the wrong reasons.
It worked for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff you can dig into on that front. Is that and people still do lots of things, and then they say, "This is why I got these results because I did."
But it's making a comeback now because of engagement metrics on social. Look we need to be controversial.
Exactly. Yeah. Look at all the stuff that we're looking at now, which speaks to the same thing. Where you've got kind of a carnivore diet, or trying to think of another
bloody Tim Spector.
Well, these things sit, and then people say, "Well, this is the health outcome. This was the weight loss. This was the strength, and all the rest of it." It's like, yeah, because you did a lot of things that are right, but by mistake, you know.
Yeah, the mechanisms at play don't change.
Yeah.
It's intermittent fasting. Oh, it does this, it does that. Well, no, it's just
no, you cut calories. You just did it in a stupid way. It's fine.
When I'm dieting, I intermittent fast because it means I don't have a meal in the morning, which means I therefore, if I only eat the remaining meals that I would have had in a normal day, have missed one, and thus eat less.
You eat less. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember
What was the first message to your 18-year-old self, Johnny? In a fitness setting.
In a fitness setting.
That was close.
Oh, that was close. I nearly fell off the edge there immediately. Don't listen to those dudes in the gym. I think actually the furthest back, and we were talking about this before, would be. So you had the internet, and I had like Muscle and Fitness magazine.
Yep.
And things like that, and I was in a combat sports setting, and then the first mistake, nutrition.
There's loads there, aren't there?
Yeah, there is. So there's a lot of pitfalls, and actually I managed to kind of avoid them just by applying logic and a bit of common sense, and then reading a bit of science, which I was interested in. But the biggest mistake I made was hoping to get big and muscular and jacked through terrible dietary choices, the same as you've just described. I was saying to Jamie beforehand that we had, I think it was Flex Wheeler. I can't remember, but somebody massive. Like I was 60-something kilos, 65. I would have fought at, so I was maybe floating about 68, 69, trying to eat a similar diet to him that was just laid out on one page. Oh, a day in my life. Right, bang, I'm going to do that. And made myself ill over the course of about 3 days. And this was not an exaggeration either. By the time I'd finished cooking and making the first steak, there's something to be said for dedication here, but by the time I'd been finished cooking and eating the first steak and whatever went along with that, eggs probably, something massively proteinous, and ended up, I had to sort of figure out when it was, if I had to start cooking the next steak. I think there was 7 steaks to be eaten a day, and that was just the baseline steak demands that this, whoever it was having. And I forced myself down that avenue a few times in an effort to become more jacked, and in doing so, really missed the wood for the trees. So I would just say, and I think this is going to be overarching advice to my 18-year-old self, is relax, think a little bit here. And certainly don't do what he's doing just because he's doing it, because he's not you. But from a nutritional perspective, I'd like to just nip back now in my DeLorean and give that lad a quick slap around the head and say, don't eat that steak, you're going to feel bloody awful. And you won't shit for about 4 days, mate. That's hard. Jammed meat in there. Oh my God.
Jammed meat in where? Sorry, Johnny. Where are you jamming other people's meat?
I'm jamming all kinds of meat in me at this
point.
Oh,
good luck. Clip that. Yeah, Clip that. Okay. Oh dear. We've digressed quickly.
Yeah.
So next on the list for me.
Stop reading Muscle Fitness magazine.
Well, it was and the forums that they then had on the internet, because a lot of it all fed through from the same places. So the next big myth, I guess, that really grabbed me by the cojones was quote unquote clean eating. And by that I mean that essentially I very much had a category of good and bad foods objectively, which again, ironically, by having very hard and fast rules on what foods I could and could not consume within those categories, meant that I therefore made very good and informed diet choices throughout that period of time, on a mission to get really, really jacked at 18 years old, because that's all that matters when you are young and want to kind of look jacked in a t-shirt. That is what I was focusing on. And it became quite debilitating where I wouldn't eat meals out. It developed a minor orthorexia nervosa, I would say, where I had a very good very clear categories of good or bad food, rather than acknowledging that essentially it's not an on and an off switch, whereby if you eat 400 calories of butter or 400 calories of chicken, broccoli, and brown rice, you are not immediately going to then become higher, and you're not going to become butter. Whereas in my mind, it was a real sort of jittery response to any quote unquote bad foods. Whereas now we're obviously much more aware that it is the sum total of what you consume over a long period of time. The what's consistent, what's constant is what matters, not each and every forkful of food or thing that you consume. And there is no objectively good or bad food. Too much of one thing is probably bad in any setting. It's how much is too much is the sort of real, the sort of devil's in the poison sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it's never sexy, is it? And it's not a cool message to put out there. One we do put out there, and we'll continue to do so, is moderation is key, especially with dietary stuff. But yeah, I'd echo that from an 18-year-old perspective, is that round about that same time, after realising I couldn't eat 7 steaks a day, I was still, again, probably the same source and the same kind of people that I was around who were mostly bodybuilders. And again, I suppose that speaks to the same thing, as I'm looking to my left and this guy's jacked, looking to my right and this guy's like a house. Necessarily want to be like them, but I thought that the way that they were eating and treating themselves was the right way. Actually, it was extraordinarily excessive and fueled by a lot of drugs. I was
then later discovered,
vaguely aware of at the time. But the clean eating thing, mate, yeah, that swallowed me up hard, and actually kind of stayed with me for quite a long time. I kind of fell into that because very, very bodybuilding kind of world that as well. Is that, what did you say, chicken, broccoli and rice?
Brown rice for me.
Yeah,
white rice was, no, I'm not going to touch that. White rice, exactly. You fucking joking. Which is processed shit.
Yeah.
Right, what?
So yeah, guys that I was with as well were going about with lots of Tupperware boxes, Jack guys and all the rest of it, but they were in quite a lot of mess and just weren't enjoying life, outside of that thing.
Important to mention that clean foods, quote unquote clean, that means whatever it wants to mean to what your political stance is. It seems to be associated with now on things.
Because that was the distinction, was like, what is clean food? I remember talking to my dad about it, who's always been a good kind of, his confusion when I mention things has always been like, oh, maybe I'm completely on the wrong track then. What are you talking about? Clean foods? Did you wash it with soap? So we'd have a look at these things, and then you could then say, well, this is kind of clean, this is not clean, and then you just get in the murky water of what does it mean. So I was able, and what I did do, obviously, as I've said before, was kind of walk down this kind of very scientific route and kind of find that, okay, so you've got fucking polysaccharides break down into disaccharides, break down saccharides and all this, and so, yeah, so you're just looking at fuel, either way you look at it. You need the minerals, you need the vitamins and all the rest of it, so you can find yourself a balance in there somewhere, but I just didn't think there was any balance. It had to be this one way, which made family life, especially...
But it's when it crosses over into a psychological threshold is when it becomes challenging, yeah.
This is advice to the 18-year-old me, because that's where it started, but then it lingered with me for quite some time. Education took me out of it, and a little bit of kind of elbowing from the sidelines. But I was really making kind of conscious decisions about what Poppy should eat as a baby and stuff. When she was eating food. Oh no, this is going to be good for her. This is going to be bad for her. And really, they just need bloody calories. The youngest of all of them just eats Mars bars all day long now. So that's not true for any social workers looking in. But
a point poorly made by having the police called. To your point,
there's got to be room and wiggle room, and there's got to be a fine line drawn between what's
again, clean, healthy, quote unquote. These words don't really mean anything anymore, because it means what it needs to mean to whatever zealot is currently shouting the loudest. So whatever is objectively whole foods, I guess, whole unprocessed food should make up the majority of your diet.
Yeah, I saw a reel from a chat the other day who shall remain nameless. I actually quite like. And he fell down the rabbit hole really quickly of you should only eat single ingredient foods, and then came out with the legend, which I hadn't heard for about a decade: if you can't pronounce it, the ingredient, then you shouldn't be eating it. I was like, damn it.
Yeah,
you're not going to eat much if you're a bit illiterate, are you? Or if what are you eating if you're dyslexic? Is that fair to say? But it's just a ridiculous notion, because then you can break down the
chemical composition of a blueberry. And
you're exactly. Like, you can't pronounce any of that, mate. Go try. Right, that's you. You're off blueberries now. So it's stupid. These things pop up. I am 1994. Did we say I was 18? I have to ask you. That's how old I am. I have to ask you how old I am. Is these things cyclically come up?
Yeah.
We're seeing these weird dietary things pop up a lot more.
Yeah, and people are confused.
I'm surprised about, because it's like, I thought we'd crossed that line now and people understood, but no, it's just I'd crossed it and understood, and a lot of people came with me on it. But it's still out there. So people who don't know in the first place can still be hoodwinked by snake oil, and the only way you're going to be able to do this is to go on my website and subscribe to my thing, because that's the way you'll understand about how eating a steak a day is the only thing possible for you.
There's a lot of that. There is a lot of that. Nobody cares. Nobody gives two shits how jacked you are.
I care. I care how jacked you are.
Okay. Not when I was 18, though.
No, that would be weird.
That would have been weird. Would have been crossing some boundaries. That didn't go the way you hoped, did it, Johnny?
Never does.
You're in dangerous territory here. Your jokes are not welcome here. Essentially, I thought I was getting jacked for self-discipline reasons, because it was the discipline that I learnt from finding the gym and getting lean and staying lean for a period of time before I kind of stopped caring was very important to me personally, but it all started from a sort of external validation justification. And the further down the rabbit hole I got, the more I realized it was very valuable for me personally, and I really did care and enjoy about it and enjoy it. Care about it and enjoy it.
Yep.
But that nobody cared. And the only people that did care were other blokes at the gym who cared about how they looked and the self-discipline and development that they were gaining from going through the same process. Which means that, yeah, you get a community of people that are all working hard and doing the same thing. Yeah. But at the end of the day, girls aren't going to think, oh, wow, he's much sexier now, he's really jacked.
They don't seem to give a hoot. Really.
No, unfortunately.
Super jacked, but also a prick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seem to go hand in hand.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes. Other people that don't lift don't care. I think, well, why would you not just have a couple more pints? Or why would you? But pizza's delicious, and it's like, well, like that's a very valid point. You don't need to. Yeah, you're not gonna be unhealthy by having a couple of pints or having some pizza. Whereas you think, oh well, it's just like, no, you're the one end of the spectrum, and somebody is in the middle of the other. Like they're not at the other end of the spectrum just because they don't fit your worldview. Yeah. And the more I realised that nobody cared, the more I could care myself, and it became very intrinsically driven. And ultimately, I really found peace with it when I was on a holiday where I was presented with food that I wouldn't ordinarily eat, but it was either that or eat nothing, because we were going to be in that location the whole day, and the food was sort of prepared based on the ingredients in there. It was pancakes with Nutella.
That could have been worse.
So, but again, going back to the
stuck in a location with only one food for the day, pancakes.
But in my worldview, that was like really, really bad. Like I was orthorexia level neurotic about. I used to carry a little pair of Joseph fold-out scales in my blazer at school, so I could weigh the baked potatoes in the canteen and things. And again, the things I learned, the understanding of nutrition and how lean I got versus where I started, were very valuable. But it took being forced, I wasn't force-fed, but being forced to have no option other than pancakes with Nutella for me to actually learn the lessons from that to then actually live a more normal and less neurotic life. Yeah, neurotic's the wrong word. Less rigid, dogmatic life.
Did you have after that day, a kind of, or even during that day, you know, the world has not crumbled, the edges have not fallen off, I have not... I have not imploded and all my muscles falling away, and Nutella's quite nice. Actually, I don't like Nutella, as you know, but...
Well, this was actually just recently after I discovered I wasn't allergic to all nuts. It was just peanuts.
Oh, even better.
So it was like a double whammy of, wow, not only is the novelty of having something with hazelnuts in it exciting, but bloody hell, Nutella is delicious. And also, I went to the mirror that afternoon, and nothing had changed.
In fact, probably looked even better with all the massive amount of carbs.
But it was like a eat a meal, check the mirror sort of mindset I got into, which ultimately underpins why I'm not that body composition driven in general terms, because a big lesson that I took, that I carry with me from my 18-year-old self is you found yourself in this position where you kind of were getting a little bit lost in terms of what you were doing. Try and avoid that again. Sensible thing to do. But looking at myself now, looking backwards, I probably could have passed on a lot of the messages that essentially start this journey for you and carry it on for you, and you won't be disappointed when nobody cares along the way.
Yeah. Okay, well, I've got something else that's popping in my mind about telling 18-year-olds, so I'll keep maybe for the next exchange. But we'll stick on that nutrition one for now, is that the need to fuel. So I've talked about kind of eating a bit like a bodybuilder and trying to make sure some of that was to maintain weight for kind of fighting reasons, but for the most part, I just wanted to look the shit. Like you say, 18-year-old, your priorities are very different. And I wanted to get bigger. I was aware that I was much smaller than everybody else. Didn't really make much difference. I was still pretty bloody capable. But I quickly learned and have unlearned and relearned and this a few times over, is that you have to fuel what it is that you're trying to do. So I'm looking at bodybuilders and trying to fuel myself the way they were based on the outcome being how they looked, and forgetting that I'm also spending X amount of time training and doing things. And it's like, well, you know, now my shots are slower. Now my ability to survive a round is lessened and all the rest of it. But it took a while to get back to that. Oh, it's food, you're just not eating enough. So it'd be nice to go back, because I think I might have been able to do more. I have no regrets or anything. I'm not like, oh, I wish I could have this, and I could have been a contender and all this shit. I just think I would have had a better time if I'd fueled better, because sometimes I felt like absolute dog shit. And it wasn't just when making weight, which is just a time we all know in that game, and powerlifting and weightlifting and other things with weight categories, making weight's just a slog, you know, but you can do it intelligently. That's another thing I learned in time. But I felt like shit a lot of times, and I wore it almost as a badge of honor, like, you know, I've got through another workout. But it's like, do you know what, mate? If the 18-year-old me, if you fueled that better, you'd probably stay jacked. You'd probably get more jacked, and you'd probably have a better time, and your techniques would be crisper, and you'd learn more, and you'd interact better, as opposed to this whole thing being a grind. So yeah, I made sport a grind for myself by missing what the point of nutrition was, which kind of speaks to the same end that you said a minute ago. Now I'm less body composition oriented. I don't have to make weight anymore. I probably will do over the course of this year if I compete at jiu-jitsu again, but it's not a big thing. That would be a choice thing, as opposed to you have to or you lose, or you don't get paid or whatever. But the bottom line is just try and enjoy it more.
I think where my relationship with things started to improve was when I disassociated the term fitness from leanness. And that came for me as a result of transitioning into powerlifting from bodybuilding, which was actually the summer after, well, a couple of months subsequently from the Nutella pancakes.
Yeah.
I kind of decided, oh, you know what, I kind of spotted the signs of myself that maybe I had a bit of a negative relationship with my appearance body-wise, and therefore I should try and channel this energy and discipline into something that's less dependent on that, and then got more drawn into, bought a pair of Addy Powers, red Addy Powers that are just outside in the gym, which are now antiques, and are still with me. And I transitioned more into powerlifting, and then did many years of that, and kind of here we are. So I think, yeah, I think the overarching lesson to me, I mean, I wouldn't change anything. I think that's the key detail. It's just give me a bit of a heads up that, you know what, 18-year-old Fergus, you don't need to take this so seriously. You don't need to put so much pressure on yourself with this. And the lessons you're going to learn along the way through going through these challenges is actually where the value really lies.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Just to conclude that, the advice to me, 18-year-old me in this scenario, was fuel the performance and fuel the fun of it. You know, it took me a while to get there, but when I did, I realised, and it was one of those, like I said, no regret kind of scenarios in my head, but I would have had more fun doing it. And there's an argument that I could have gotten further, because I maybe wasted a lot of time in a state where I couldn't really cognitively progress. You know, skill acquisition is a huge part of that game, and I was no doubt hampering and stunting that a little bit by trying to maintain this body weight, shape, size, and aesthetic against actually just getting better in my sport, which bloody hell, you know, other fuckers were murdering me. That's why I'm a coach, not a world-class fighter. Important
to underline, no slight on those that are body composition focused in any way, shape or form. Just I think for us, we've always been more drawn to performance metrics, and have learnt that through having a potentially negative relationship with body composition as a dominant power over us.
It's absolutely worth saying it, that in that scenario, what I'm saying is I should have fueled what it was I was trying to achieve instead of fueling what somebody else was trying to achieve. You know, bodybuilding, as I said earlier on, I think it's immense. It's an amazing sport, and what some people are able to achieve is mind blowing in that game. And the discipline, the dedication, all the rest of it, mind blowing. Like anybody else, they can fall off the sides, and I think it's a little bit easier from a nutritional perspective for that game to that to happen in that game. But if my end result, which it was, the goal I had, which was to get better in my sport, then I shouldn't have been looking through a window that was somebody else's sport. It's as simple as that, you know. I think body composition, aesthetics, bodybuilding, a very, very noble quest, just not mine. So I was just barking up the wrong bloody tree, quite literally.
Whose turn is it?
Yours. Yes, it's yours. Your turn.
Okay. You can't just hope for the best and maintain your 5K pace for a 10K. Jamie will be laughing at this one.
You can, but it will turn out.
Yeah, so I decided I'd been focusing on 5Ks. Once I'd lost a lot of weight, down to about 76, I kind of, my programming methodology back then was a hard effort 5K on a Tuesday and a hard effort 10K on a Thursday.
Sounds
logical. Good. Why? Because to be good at 5Ks and 10Ks, you should run 5Ks and 10Ks. My 18-year-old uninformed logic told me. And I did the Bella Houston Park 10K.
I didn't know you'd ever even set foot in Glasgow. Well done.
Excuse me. I've ran home from it several times at your instruction.
You ran
you
away from
pedantic
Glasgow
prick.
many times.
But I stepped foot in it, so you should have chosen your words more carefully, you fool. Anyway, I've also been headbutted in Glasgow on a night out, so you can take the English accent out of Edinburgh, but
you can't put it in Glasgow.
but you can put lots of South Africans in the rugby team. So anyway, nonetheless, I'm not going to try and share blame here. It was entirely me. Went through to Bella Houston for a 10K. Thought, you know what, I'm going to the first organised event. I'm going to send this. I'm just going to work really hard the whole way through. 5K came in at a nice crisp 18:02. Thinking, you know what, perfect. I'm on track for a 36:04 here. And my dad was in the car and saw me go through.
Hear the wheels falling off, or was that
it happened at about 6K. My dad saw me in with the front runners and he thought, fucking hell, Fergus looks out of place here. He must be doing well. Maybe we found a misspent youth here. And then it was 4 laps, and I think on lap 3 I wasn't with the pack that I was the first time round. And he thought, oh, I see. Sure. And then lap 4, which was about 250 metres before the finish, he was kind of like, oh, he was with them. He was with them. He was with them. He's not with them. Where is he? Is something gone wrong? Oh, there he is. Oh, God. And I finished in 42:37. Oh, so God. I just blew up so hard and
hard drop, isn't it?
Spent 4K clinging on for dear life, when in reality I probably could have paced a 40, maybe even just below 40 effort if I'd been less of a moron at the start and lit myself up. It was basically a max effort 5K where I had to continue running.
You're done. No, I'm not. I'm going to do it again.
So the whole concept of negative splitting wasn't even something I was aware of back then. But
imagine trying to negative split from that point as well. That would have been
it would have been exactly that, imagination and nothing but. This is where the South Park imagination comes in. If anyone knows what that is, I respect you.
I'd like to have seen that. That would have been hilarious.
It was funny. Yeah. It was funny because
you see that a lot. I've described this many times from a coaching perspective. You know that somebody's, and I describe this on consults with people, and the nodding and yes, this is me that comes along with it. It's
I am who you describe.
It's like 95% and above of these consults, and it's this idea that they've maybe run a half marathon or a 10K or whatever before. Exactly what you've just described. This kind of starting out, feeling fresh, feeling strong. Halfway through, maybe even 2/3 of the way, the wheels come right off, and they come over the finish line, looking like bears got them 10 yards out. And it's like, what happened to you? What on earth happened to you? So you didn't train right, and it's this kind of wobbly shape. So if you stand on the finish line of any of these kind of races, you can tell who's trained better by the shape they make as they come through the finish line. It's really interesting to see the biomechanics. So I imagine you look like those same proverbial bears had gotten you on the last turn and thrown you around and toyed with you a bit and then put you back on the track. Oh my God.
I was Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenanted. There you go.
Good reference. So yeah.
So that's a lesson learned.
Train intelligently.
Message delivered to Fergus, and I maybe could have gone sub 40 in my first recreational 10K, but alas, I did not.
Yeah, full send is not always the way forward.
Well, I full sent. There's no question in my mind that I fully sent it, but
shouldn't
I should have spread that out over 10 kilometers rather than 5.
I think something that crossed my mind earlier on, I thought I'd keep for a minute or two, was back myself. I think the 18-year-old, or back yourself, I'd say to an 18-year-old me. I think that carries over even till now, is these kind of questions that you have of yourself. And actually something that we could probably not make light of is the fact that these mistakes have been made and so many lessons have been learnt from them. So it's almost like if we were to go back to our 18-year-old self, and being a bit philosophical here to a degree, and say, don't do this is the mistake you're going to get, this is the, don't do that, don't go full send on that 10K because you're not going to make it past 5 without it all falling to bits. There's probably some real joy in the lesson you learned from that. Now you can laugh. At the time it was bloody horrible, but now you can laugh about it, and now it feeds your intelligence as a coach and all the rest of it, because you can experientially say, well, this is what happened when I did it wrong, and I can help you not do that. So there's some good comes of these things. But I think that overall, probably the messages we should be sending to 18-year-old selves would be kind of things that still haunt us. Do you know what I mean? So if you're able to say, okay, so in your situation, the orthorexic eating or coming close to that it's probably worth going back and saying to that guy, don't do that, because
Yeah.
the negative thoughts and the feelings that you're going to get is going to feed into other things, and you're just treating yourself badly here. And overall, whether it's food or not, you're learning to speak to
It's bad
yourself.
for my social life and stuff
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. So you're learning
Key
to speak to
age.
yourself negatively as well. You're probably telling yourself, don't eat that, you fucking idiot, and all this kind of stuff. So each mistake you make then feeds into a kind of a mindset about yourself. And mine probably would be back yourself. I always doubted capability. And I think if I was able to say to myself, what I can say to myself freely now, and you said it earlier on, is nobody cares. It doesn't matter. So I have felt like there were these eyes on me. People were looking at me. You need to perform. You need to maintain this status. You need to maintain this output, this capability. You need to be the guy that you said you were. If I could look back and tell that 18-year-old, you know what, mate, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. As long as you're a decent guy and you're kind to people and you're offering service to people in some positive sense or another, these things don't matter. Then you'd have been freed up from that statement to just go, well, I can pursue it with grace now. I can pursue it without having the fear of failure. I should be there to a degree anyway, but I can pursue it without this sick negative self-talk. And backing myself to just have the fun, to just do it, to just enjoy it, to be there, to enjoy the process and all the rest of it, and to deliver when I needed to, is a lesson I wish I'd been able to tap into then. The fact that I can now is because of those mistakes. But I think it would have been, I'd had a nicer time if I'd not, because I did have a hard time for a long time in trying to maintain a certain status. And some of that's not fitness, as you know, but a lot of it was fitness, and a lot of it spoke across the board to both things as well. So I'd like to have been able to have the advice, which I was actually getting. Turns out people were saying these things to me, I just wasn't listening. Is chill out, just enjoy it, be there. My good friend Justin, love you Justin, would say, Johnny, just stop and smell the coffee, smell the flowers, and just take a moment. It's not all go, it's not all fight, it's not all push. You can just take a minute. And I didn't. Sometimes I wish I had. That's good advice.
Agreed.
Relax.
Agreed. Final message to my 18-year-old self today would be to have faith in the desire to work hard and push towards things that you're intrigued by nets the results that you never thought it could. And 18-year-old me sat there after school watching YouTube videos of people in the fitness space or Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory and all of the things that I thought, wow, this is mad. From a viewer's point of view, just through continually and accidentally doing stuff that I've enjoyed, but by being all in, has equaled exactly what I never thought it could, which, as pure symbols, is a mini ramp in our gym. Rob Dyrdek Fantasy Factory ticked.
Yeah.
And
we said
that. I mean, even just having a YouTube channel, the fear that I felt of, I was curious and wanted to explore that as an option, but I thought my mates would have taken the piss out of me, so I didn't do it. And it took me a few years to build up the confidence to even do that. And even then, that wasn't for standard social media documentation reasons. It was as a mechanism to fundraise money for Movember to draw funds towards the project that I was working towards. And then again, by accident, it's developed into everything now. And essentially, I didn't have much faith in that when I was younger. Do I wish it had happened sooner? No, because we are where we are. But it would have just been nice to believe that in the future, the things that I felt I wanted to work hard towards, the sort of self-imposed shackles that I put on myself to work towards them, I'd find a way out of or through. Because here we are.
Yeah.
And buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. Yeah, I said earlier on, my age says buy the domain Yahoo, or you could name about 10 of them. Because there were people back then would buy these things, wouldn't they? They'd buy the name and make an absolute fortune doing so.
That's it.
I wish
Ransom.
Wish I'd done that.
Anyway.
Google. Yeah.
Google probably would have just gone elsewhere. Bing.com. Those are some messages to our 18-year-old self, and mostly insights on the fact that we drank the Kool-Aid as well. over the years.
Oh, I drank many Kool-Aids. Yeah,
So-
yeah, which has informed a lot of what we've got now. In actual fact, you got to go down the wrong road to realize it was the wrong road. Sometimes
Understand
That's
the
a good lesson
mechanisms.
itself.
Understand that. Commit the time to understanding the mechanisms and the things at play, so that you can make informed decisions on the things being presented to you. And that is where freedom comes in this space specifically, because it means you can look at things for what they are.
Yeah, yeah. Apply some logic. Think objectively. Step outside of who you believe you are, and just have a look from a slightly different perspective. A few different lenses is always useful. A great analogy that I've mentioned a few times is it's very often, fitness is a great example of this. It's very often to be the fly on the TV. I've said that before, haven't I? Is that if you're a fly and you zoom in onto the television and you're looking at the television, you think you're seeing the full picture because you're only a fly and you can see the pixels around you. But if you flew back, you'd see that there's vastly more to look at. And that's what we do a lot of times. Fitness does it. The industry does it. Oh, this is the focus here. This is what we're all doing. And everybody argues about these bits. You're like, have you even flown back and given yourself some perspective here? Because it looks like you haven't. And it took a long time to actually, because you think, oh, I can't fly back. That's dangerous. So it takes a long time to kind of fly back far enough and say, bloody hell, there's so much more here. And that little bit that I'm looking at is just a part of it. And actually the bigger pieces make much more sense from here. Take your time. Do that. Get some objective perspective.
Job done. Rate, review, share with friends, and please DM us with your lessons to your 18-year-old self, because they're hilarious.